And most of our students, junior high school students are under 14, under 14 or even 14 and above. But the study has shown that most of these problems they start very young. So they start very young at a very young age, and so it doesn't take you to be an adult for you to have a problem, with mental health. Children can also suffer from mental health, and it's a very big issue. And the mental health issues that they face as children can impact them on their education. When they get a job in the future, it can affect them, how they treat their, friends, their relationship with other people, their, parenting styles. It can even affect them. So, when you go back and you maybe interview a few people and you talk to them about, why they act the way they act or why they do what they do, you might find that most of the problems or the issues they have started when they were children. They will tell you, I won't let my child do this because when I was a child, so you see, go back to when I was a child, when I was a child, when I was a child. So that's what the study have noticed, that most of these issues they happen way before the age of 14. And so for us to be able to, raise children or youth or to later in the future have adults that don't have such problems, we have to tackle them when they are children or when they are younger. Yes. So we are going to go through, what is mental health and what it entails. And as you can see here, mental health, it includes our emotions, our psychological, social well-being. Psychological is how you are thinking, how you analyze your environment, how you see things. So that's what it entails. And then our emotions, if you are being happy, if you are feeling happy, if you are feeling sad, if you are feeling discouraged, moody, all these are part of our mental health. So you can have someone who doesn't have any problem aside the fact that that person is very moody. That person is always to himself or herself. That person is always quiet, and you might think, oh, it's just normal, but that is not. It can also have an impact on the mental health, and it's also a sign of that. Yes. So you see here that they also help to determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, and make choices. And like I said earlier, our mental health is important at every stage of our life. So from childhood, adolescence, through to adulthood, we need to make sure that the things that we do, what we say, what we engage in, are going to help with our mental health. And so we have a few things that contribute, to our mental health. And like we see here, we have our biological factors. The biological factors is, our brains have some chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, all these things are produced in our brain. And so they can also contribute to our mental health. So in case those biological factors are not, in their right proportions or are not being produced, it can affect our mental health. And then our life experiences, such as trauma or abuse, which is the main focus. Because most of the people that have mental health issues, though their biological factors are okay or are in normal ranges, their life experiences, such as the trauma and abuse, is what contributed to the outcome of their illness. And so I'm going to really focus on the life experiences and the trauma and the abuse, because as children, we go through so many things that we can't even identify as being trauma or as being abuse. And so we'll go through that. And also we have a family history of mental illness, which is a fraction of the percentage. So, but then if there's a history of a mental illness in a person's family, that means that the person has to be taking extra care of themselves to make sure that they don't end up in the same situation. That doesn't mean that if someone is from a family where a person is experiencing mental problems, it means that person automatically has a mental illness. It just means that it's a sign of caution to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. So let's take a look at the human brain and its relation to the mental health. The mental health. So, like I said earlier, mental health here it means that it indicates that there's a problem in the brain, and that scientists are learning about the biology. Like I said, our biological factors that help our brain, like the dopamine, the serotonin, and all those things. They help our brains function, control our moods, control our actions and all that. And so that is also a part of that. So in order to understand what mental health is, we need to first understand how the brain works. So we need to know that our brain, where it's located, it controls every part of our body. It controls how you move, how you talk, everything. Okay, so it controls the actions of the body, and it's often referred to as the master control of the brain. So you can have people be going to the hospital and they'll tell you that you have brain dead. So that means when your brain is dead, you can't do anything because it controls every aspect of the body. So that's what our brain does. And then the cells in our brain also help us to function. They are called neurons. And then they have specialized areas. So our brain has two big, separation, the left and the right brain. And then within that, we have, areas that control our speech, our actions. You can see in the, you can see here. So our brain has many functions, and then it controls how we think, known as the cognition, how you think, how you analyze the situation. And then we have perception or sensing. We have emotions, we have signaling, we have behaviors, and we have physical functions. So the physical functions, for me to lift up my hand, it means my brain is working properly. For me to raise my leg, it means my brain is working properly. Behaviors. We can have an example is children with autism. Autism, sometimes they exhibit some characters that are out of their control. That means the brain is not working properly. That's why they are not able to control their behavior. So our brain controls our behaviors, signaling, emotions, perception, and thinking. Okay, so when someone has a mental health problem, when someone is suffering mentally, it means that their brain, there's something wrong with their brain. It's not they're doing. Nobody wakes up and says, I feel like today having a mental health problem. No, it means there's something in the brain that is not working well. And so we need to understand that and not stigmatize people on the kind of challenges that they have. Okay. So when something is wrong with the brain, then it means that the person has a mental health problem. And then also a number of things can be happening inside the brain. It's either the cells and neurons, like I said earlier, they are not working well, they are not functioning. The neurons and cells are very, minute or little things that send signals, from our brain to parts of our body. So if your neurons or your cells are not working, then it means that they can't send signals to where they need to be sent to for it to be used. Okay. And then we have a specific part of the brain is not working or it's working in the wrong way. So like we saw in the picture, if the part of your brain that controls how you behave is not working properly, then it means that it's going to affect your behavior. It's going to affect your behavior. If you have a part of your brain that controls your physical function not working, then it means it's going to affect how you physically perform functions like how you walk, how you talk, how you raise, your body functions will not be working well. And also, like I said, that we have chemicals in our brain that help with our function. So the neurochemical messengers also aren't working properly. That could also be why a person will have a mental health illness. And also for us to know that mental illness actually has something to do with our brain. Scientists did a research and they used the positron emission topography, which is a PET scan, to identify or to examine two brains, that is a person or someone they determined as healthy and normal brain, and then someone with depression brain. And so the PET scan, it measures the movement of chemicals, like I said, the chemicals in our brain. And then it gives a view of every single layer of the brain. So when you're taking a PET scan, the brain is pictured from below to your head, and then you lie down. And so the ions or the machine captures the brain from the back. It takes it layer by layer by layer. And so this here shows the activity in your brain, okay? And the image you see here, the high and the low, that is, high activity level and low activity level. And in these two images, you can see that image one has high activity level. That means the red part of the brain, and then the image two, you can see that the red part of the brain is very small. And image one is actually of a healthy person, someone with no mental problems, someone they have deemed, healthy and doesn't have any mental. That means their brain has high activity. That means they're able to function, they're able to think, relate with people and everything well. But then the image two is of someone with depression. So depression I don't know how first to visualize it to you, but when people are depressed, they are very moody and sad, they are not thinking. So the image two, you can see that the activity level is low. The high area and the red areas are very few and they are not really strong. That means the person with depression, the brain is not working properly. The chemicals in the brain are either too small or too below the level that they cannot function properly with the amount of chemicals they have in their brain. And then we have the second one. This one shows the chemicals in the brain, okay? And you can see the high and the low. So here, it's even easy to understand. A person without depression, you can see how the high areas in the brain, you can see like the butterfly shape here. And then a person with depression, you can see that there's no high, that means the chemicals in the brain are just low level. Okay, so when someone has a mental illness, it's not something that, and even if someone can fake it, it's something that can be noticed. Once you take a PET scan, you can see that the person's chemicals in the brain are below level and all that. Yes. And so we'll go through the process of mental illness. Okay. A number of things have been known to be the major process of people having mental illness. We have stress, and I know in our part of the world or in our setting in Ghana, we when you complain about stress, it's either you are characterized as being lazy or being well-to-do. Yeah, you have enough to feel stressed. But people that need to work extra hard for a living, they can't complain of stress. And stress is a major contributing factor of people having mental health problems. And this is to say that mental health problem doesn't mean that only the people walking outside with tattered clothes, and dirty faces are the only ones suffering from mental health problems. Anyone is susceptible to having a mental health problem. So let's take note of that. Yes. And then we have a history of abuse. Like I said earlier, those are the causes, the physical aspect, like the abuse, the trauma, they are the ones that have a major cause and major effect on our mental health. So we're going into that. So we have sexual abuse, we have physical abuse, we have emotional and verbal abuse. And we also have chemical imbalances in the brain. So like we discussed earlier, your chemicals, that one you have no control over. So you can't sit here and know that, oh, okay, my brain chemicals are okay or not. There's no way you can tell that. So that's no one's fault. And we have a traumatic injury. Sometimes people suffer from it, like being in an accident. Imagine being the breadwinner of your family and then you have an accident and you can't provide for them anymore. You end up thinking all the time, your mood change, you start, characterizing yourself in a particular group of people that isn't so, and then you can also have a toll on your mental health. So that is it for the and even as children, imagine a child also having an accident, maybe being amputated or something, and then you come to school and all your friends have legs, they have hands, they are playing, and you can't play. It also affects their mental health. And so that is what we need to be teaching our students, that mental health problems is a very huge topic, and it's not only about people walking in the streets. And so everybody needs to have an idea about that. And then we also have use of recreational drugs like marijuana. When you become cocaine, meth, alcohol, when you become dependent on those stuff and you don't have it, you don't get it anymore, it affects your mental health. You end up, either stealing or using bad means to get what you want, and it also has an effect on the mental health. And you have having a medical condition. There are people who have been diagnosed with maybe cancer, maybe some other form of chronic illnesses like diabetes, maybe hypertension, and they can't do what they used to do before. And it affects them. Imagine having hypertension, they tell you that you can't run or you can't do this job, and maybe that is the only job that you can do to provide for your family. So having such a chronic medical condition, it can still affect your mental health. Okay, and then social isolation. That's why when you go to other parts of the world, in the US, Canada, Australia, their prisons, their correctional facilities, they still have they make them engage in social activities. They can work, they can go to school, they can exercise, they can do a whole lot of things that will help build their mental health and not actually give them a mental health problem while they are in prison. So that is social isolation. So when you come to Ghana, in our prisons, I stand to be corrected, but I don't know how best prison prisoners are treated over there, but it would be very nice to know that they are being treated properly by giving them a gym, maybe a school, something they can do to help. But no, so social isolation can also affect the person's mental health. Okay, we have anxiety. What are some of the mental health disorders? Like I said, mental health disorder is not only the people walking around in the streets with certain things. You need to know that. Okay, so we have anxiety disorders. We have a panic disorder. We have people that panic a lot. I know we all know someone that panics a lot. They worry too much. Any small thing, no, we have to go. You see, it's just plain panic. So that is a mental health problem that needs to be sorted with, that needs to be dealt with. Yes, so we have anxiety disorders like a panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and the phobias. The obsessive compulsive disorder, there are some people, they can't stop blacking their hair, they can't stop biting their finger nails. These are all obsessive compulsive disorders. Yes, and we have phobias. Some people can't stand being in a dark room. Some people can't stand being in a small room. Some people can't stand going to the sea. They are afraid of those things. Those are phobias. Those are things that people are afraid of. These are also mental health problems that need to be dealt with. We have depression, we have bipolar disorder and mood disorder. So when we talk about the bipolar disorder, we can have a student that is very good in school. When a child comes to school, you can see that the child relates and is very good, a very normal student. But then when the child goes home, it's a different character. The parents always complain, you don't do this, you don't do that. That is bipolar. It's like you have two different personalities. When you come to school, you are this person. When you go home, you are this person. And there are some students when they are home, they are angels. But when they come to school, they are adulterated. So these are all a sign of mental health disorders that we need to get. And then we have eating disorders like anorexia nervosa. We have bulimia. The eating disorders are also part of the mental health disorders. And then we have post-traumatic stress disorder, like suffering from an accident or being in an abusive environment or relationship. Yes. And then we have the psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. There are some people who walk around and hear voices or see things. It's because some parts of their brain are not working properly. Maybe the part that controls their visual field is sending them images that are not real, that are not real in their environment. And so they end up acting, especially like those in the streets. You see them talking to themselves or to someone or something that isn't there. And so these are the common ones. We usually see them on the streets, and then we end up saying, "Oh, that is a mad person." Yes, but these are all some of the mental health disorders. Okay. So we are going to go straight to abuse. Like I said, that is the major factor of the mental health problem. Abuse has so many effects at any age. You can be a very grown-up adult who can still suffer an abuse. Yes. So we need to go into that. But up until the stage of the abuse, if you have any questions, I'll take 2 or 3 and then we can move on to the abuse. If you don't have any questions, so I'll just go right through it. So if anybody has a question. Okay. Yes, please. Okay, yes. Yes, like I said, in the other slide, we had genetic in family history of a mental illness or a mental problem. And it's not only, like I said, we always characterize on the schizophrenia. That is the people who see and hear things that aren't there on the streets. No. Sometimes studies have actually shown that a person who experienced maybe depression or even a panic disorder, later on, if not their child, their grandchild suffered from the same disorder. So it's a disorder, not necessarily because a person is mad, then the relative also can be mad. But then it needs to draw your attention to the fact that you need to take care of yourself very well. If you have money, if you have the access, if you have the means, you need to be going for a regular medical checkup. So that if there's something wrong in your brain, you take a CT scan or a PET scan, they can tell you the earlier the better. Mental health disorders can be treated. We'll get to that. So it's not a problem that because a member of your family or a member of someone's family has a mental illness, it doesn't mean that the person is going to have a mental illness. No, that is not. But it is a possibility that if there is someone in the family
personality disorder. They always differ.
Yeah. I mean,
I want
shed more light on
light
it.
on that
Okay.
and how that also related to mental disorders. So I was thinking that when their infancy, when they used to do something,
Okay, yeah, maybe
when
something
that
account
was,
and
yes,
everything.
that,
Okay.
I didn't know it's also part of mental disorder. So I'll be happy if you
I
can
go one
more
side.
light.
Okay, all right. So yes, the personality disorders, right? So like our brother asked, yes, biting of toes, fingernails, plucking of hairs, they are a sign that the person is thinking of something. So it's a sign that when someone is maybe even in a panic state, they have to do something that will take their mind off the panic. So they end up doing that. So you see someone sitting there like, because once they are plucking their hair, their attention gets to their hair plucking, and so they forget about what they are thinking about. So it still means that there's something that you're thinking about. Maybe sometimes, it's hard for you to clearly say that. That's why I said, people say that children don't have, any reason to have a mental disorder or a mental issue or something. But these are signs. Because the child is thinking, when I go home, I need to go and do this, when I go home. So whilst thinking about certain things, they are just, biting their nails, plucking their hair, even sometimes scratching. Some people can scratch to the fact that they can, injure themselves. So the relation to that in the mental health is that you are thinking about something. You are obsessing over something in your brain. So you thinking about that thing, you end up biting. Because if you are biting your fingernails, it's different if the fingernails is already bitten it off. But you see, the people I'm talking about, they bite to the extent that you end up finding no nails on their finger. So that becomes, and it's also ends up being as the compulsive, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's also the same. They end up biting, because they are thinking about something. So they always end up biting their, fingernails or plucking their hair or something. They do something in the same manner or the same way for a long time. So that is the explanation I can give for that, because you are thinking about something. There's something you are focused on. And once you meet a psychologist or a therapist that is able to, talk to you, go in depth of how you are thinking, usually they'll ask you what happens right before you bite your fingernails or right before you pluck your hair or something like that. And then eventually that person, personally will come out with, oh, no reason, maybe when I have to go this place, I end up. Then you realize that the problem is either about going to the place or what you have to do at the place. And so the therapist will tackle that and they help you get through it. So if there's no other question, you can get through to that.
I don't know whether it's a question or it's a question.
Oh, yes.
I want to really find out. Specific wise, I'm thinking, and the society is full of mental disorders.
Yes.
But the reason is, the explanation that he just gave about the thing that, even if I am not being, as I'm here, at times when my mind even get out of something, does it mean I have a mental
Yes, that's why we don't have to stigmatize those walking on the street. With
Almost
that's why
everybody
we are all at risk of getting mental health problems. Yes, it means you need to learn how to direct your attention to one thing at a time, because your mind going that way. So sometimes, when you're thinking about something else, like you're here and you're thinking, I need to go here tomorrow, today, I need to do this. That means your attention is out of this room and it's somewhere else. And in cases of other people, they end up doing, biting their fingernails and stuff, but they're thinking about something else aside of what's happening in their surroundings and environment. So, yes. But like our brother rightly said, there are lots of people suffering mental health problems, around us.
We also accuse an introvert as mental health.
Okay. We have everything in their normal capacity. Yes. Being an introvert doesn't necessarily mean that you have a mental health problem unless you have some other characteristics. like put them around their friends. They are okay. They are only introvert when they get to an unknown environment or an unknown situation. Yes. So being an introvert doesn't mean that you have a mental problem because someone is but then if someone is always to themselves, some children or some people don't like playing, they don't go out. Yes, it could be a sign, and it's usually a sign of an abuse somewhere. Yes, being told, verbally abused. Like some children, they get their own parents telling them that they are so ugly. They are so ugly. I wonder if you have friends at school. So because the parents have told the child they are ugly, the child doesn't want to come and play for the children to tell him or her that they are ugly. So they end up being by themselves. That is a sign of a child being abused. Okay, so those signs, could mean that a person has a mental, but then being an introvert doesn't mean that the person, oh, you're an introvert, so you have an introvert. But if there is too much of, the characteristics or the signs, a child being too moody, being kept to him or herself, yes, that could be a sign that the child has a mental.
I have a friend who at times reserve himself without talking to anybody, even if he talk to you, respond to without nobody has offended that person. If that is how it is happening there, we can say that something wrong with that.
Yes. Because normally, if a person is sitting down and I speak to you, you respond. But if you're not responding, it's either your mind is not in your environment or you are so much deep in your brain that you can't actually have an idea of what's happening in your environment. And it's a serious thing because sometimes it depends. Some people do it intentionally. They don't want to talk to you. But then if something happens, right, if a fire sets in you, they walk around. Yes, so that is
He can do everything what he wants to do, but
okay, so that is intentional. That is intentional. Yes. That is, but there's some people it's called a trance. Some people can be in a trance. Some people can be in a trance, and that means that their mind is somewhere else and they can't, fully comprehend their environment. Such a person, if a fire sets in the room and they won't realize it, they can end up being injured or hurt or even worse, dead. Yes. So, but some people do it intentionally. So they are not going to mind anybody that it. So they will just do it themselves and then go, yeah. So it's also, if the person doesn't realize the environment, then it's a sign. But then if the person can do everything, walk, come and go, and everybody doesn't respond to you, then it's an intentional thing. Yes. Please, last question.
If a woman reaches she start using different signs that she didn't actually before.
Okay,
At
different
that point,
signs.
would you say that the person has I don't know.
So we are creating an awareness, but then there are some things that we don't have to diagnose by ourselves. We need a specialist. Menopause comes with its own symptoms, and some of them include feeling hot or heat. If you have a wife that you've been staying with for 20 years, never requested for a fan. But then as time went on, all of a sudden she needs a fan, she needs this, then it means that the body is changing, and so she's also changing. Yes, those signs are normal. Okay, sometimes they can always complain my knee, my waist. Yes, they are all signs of menopause. But then when the symptoms they're exhibiting or their behaviors is way out of order, very strange, violent, and all that, then it means there could be a possibility of a mental health disorder, and you need a specialist to help you diagnose it and manage it. Okay, so we are going to go into the abuse. I know we are teachers, so I don't want to waste much time going into each and every one, but then we know that an abuse means that you're excessively using something that you're abuse. I know sometimes people say, oh, you abuse your phone, it's my phone. If I'm using it, it's not abuse, it's mine. I can use my phone as long as I want. But then using something that doesn't belong to you or something that you shouldn't be doing too much or something that you shouldn't be doing at all, then that becomes an abuse. So the improper treatment of someone or something to selfishly gain benefit. Okay, so this classroom is for like the school or for an institution. If one person always comes to this room, uses the computers and the Wi-Fi and everything, and then goes every day, then that means that person is abusing this room. because it is not yours. You are not supposed to. We all have ways and means that we can go through to get access to this thing. But if you have one person that's always breaking in this, then it means that person is abusive. Then that is just an example. So some of the examples of abuse are the sexual abuse. We have the physical abuse, emotional abuse, and verbal abuse. So the sexual abuse, we have rape, defilement, sexual assault, child molestation or pornography. We have the physical abuse. It's also beating. People are beating all the time. I know in our secondary schools and primary schools, we're beating all throughout. We didn't know we were being abused. We didn't know we were being abused, but beating is also part of the physical abuse. Cutting, stabbing, they are all parts of the physical. And then we have emotional abuse. Emotional abuse like ignoring people, yelling, swearing, mocking, intimidation. There's some children that can tease their friends to the extent that that child becomes suicidal. Yes, so this emotional abuse need to stop. And we have the verbal abuse as well. Intense arguments, yelling, name calling, these are all forms of abuse that we need to stop. Sometimes I know in some environments it's like a joke, hey, are you a fool? Hey, come here, like those kind of things. But then if you meet someone that is very fragile, it can end up being a form of an abuse on that person. So we are going to go into the forms of abuse. The sexual abuse, I know we all know rape. The rape is when you forcefully engage in sexual activity with someone above the age of 18. So forcefully, as long as the person is above 18 and you force the person with no consent, then it means that you are raping that person, yes. And I know in some instances, some people say, oh, he or she was drunk, or the person said yes, but then research has shown, and some courts actually don't accept that excuse. If a person is drunk, they can't give you consent. If a person is drunk, they cannot, even if you tell the person said yes, go ahead, the court will not accept it. So if the person is drunk and then tells you, oh no, oh she's no, drunk and consent have nothing to do together. So if the person is drunk, you can't get consent. And so if you don't get consent, then it is rape. And then we have the defilement. Defilement is the children younger.
There's a term that is coming up, known as marital rape. What is the reason of that?
Okay, I haven't really. I've also heard of that. That even yes, so like I'm saying, you could be married to the person, but since you don't have consent, since you don't have consent, the main issue there is the consent. Yes. So if you don't have the consent, then it's rape. Yes. And it's an abuse. So sometimes you end up in court and you only be charged with rape, but then you be charged with emotional abuse and sexual assault and rape. That is three different offenses. And you end up being in a very bad situation. Yes. So the defilement is for younger than 18 years, with or without consent. With or without consent is defilement. And then we have sexual assault. Sexual assault, all ages come across. If an old woman is going and you forcefully take the wrapper or the cloth off and she becomes naked, that is a sexual assault. If a child is walking around naked and you take your phone and you take a picture of that child, it's a sexual assault. And then we have child molestation, which also still comes under the sexual assault. But then the molestation, it entails a lot, and the assault also entails a lot. It could be just looking. It could just be, telling the child to do something, go and wear your clothes and let me see. That is still a sexual assault. And then we have the child pornography. So some people, like I said, if a child is walking around, you think, I don't know, maybe you think it's funny. Oh, look at that child, and then you take a picture. It's child pornography. If it's seen on your phone, you can be arrested and you can be jailed. And then we have the physical abuse, beating, burning. Some people get so mad at their partners or their friends, they end up doing.
Is it that part? There are some women, when they see men, they also shake their buttocks. See, they are also abusing us. It's also abuse.
No,
Sexual abuse.
no, it's not sexual abuse. It's the woman clothes. It's the woman wearing clothes. Yes. People don't have control over their physical appearance. I can't tell my breast not to grow. I can't tell my bum not to be soft or not to shake when I'm walking. Okay. So once I'm close, but then if a woman comes to you, undresses, and that is indecent exposure, you can sue the woman. You can go ahead and take it to court. Yes, it's indecent exposure. So even in public, someone walking around naked, no clothes, then it's indecent exposure. That one it cuts across everyone. Any member of the society can report, and with a strong lawyer, you can win the case. But then if the person is clothed, walking around, shaking the bum and everything, please.
They are also abused. You cannot deliberately shaking your bum on the street. Well, you know that it's also serving as
So we'll get there. You see, the issue is that there are some men who also walk and their bum shakes. So you could also say we are doing that.
Yes.
No, but that is not the case. The issue is that see, if the person's bum is shaking, that doesn't mean that is not a sign. That is not a consent for you to either force yourself on the person or even take a picture of the person or try to abuse the person. Yes, that is no person's fault. Like I said, if a person can't say that today I'm working, I'm going to choose that my bum will not shake. Okay. But like you're saying, though some people do it intentionally, there's no way to tell that this one is doing it intentionally, this one is natural, this one is doing it intentionally. No. So, and then abuse, you can never blame a victim, ever. You can't say that, because you wore a short skirt. No. That is not time, yes. If you go to court, you can't tell the judge, oh, judge, she was wearing a short skirt. Is it consent? It's not consent. So that is it, yes.
But madam, you see the dressing communities. So you are dressing communicate to you that you are ready. And
Dressing directly.
You decide to interpret the dressing.
Okay.
I don't have to wait for you to say that. Oh, you can come over.
No. Okay, so let me give you an example, okay? I understand, now setting up the world, like I said, that's how we say now setting up the world. If you go to America and I wear, a sleeveless top and a short skirt, it is not known as, inviting or maybe over there. It's normal. But then when I come here, right? Okay, so let's example. In my part of Saka, where I'm coming from, if I see someone wearing a smoke, what our brother is wearing, I think we are cheap or something. So if dressing really does communicate, then is he a cheap? No. Sometimes, in our festive occasions, maybe going for a wedding or something, we wear a suit. A suit, I know people who work in the bank, the parliamentarian, they wear suits. But are you a parliamentarian? You see, dressing, if it really does communicate and then it's sensitive, then people will be attacked. If I see someone with the streets coming, I'm like, okay, it might be a banker. And then it's like, no, I'm attending a wedding. Okay. So the dressing doesn't give consent. Okay, it doesn't give consent. It all boils down to our part of the law. But then at the end of the day, it's still consent. It's still more consent. So you can't say that because a person, dress provocatively.
We are not evidence on the consent, but the abuse in it. Someone abusing the other. That is where we are talking about.
So that's okay. So we are going to get there, but then we need to educate the children. So I'll come there. We have risk factors. Things that causes a person to be abused. You understand the victim. We have some things that they can do that can cause them to be abused. That doesn't mean that it is their fault. So we just want them to know about it and then help prevent. But then you can't say that because a child dressed provocatively, it's their fault of being abused. It's always the fault of the perpetrator. The person who went ahead and caused himself or herself on the other person is the one at fault. Yeah, so we'll get to that. It's all part of representation. Yes. So the physical abuse, the beating, the bending. I was saying earlier, some people get angry and they'll be playing and then they will hit their friend. Okay, some children, when you hit them, they feel, so it all boils down to our part. Some people, when you go to, some people, like the cattle, when they are crossing, they hit them with the stick and stuff like that. So some children, when you hit them, you make them feel like an animal. And then when they end up feeling like an animal, they act like an animal. They become outrageous, violent. So you will not understand why a child is being so violent. Why is so violent? They'll be hitting their friends because they are being hit and beaten. So that is also a sign of it could also cause a mental illness. Yes. So the beating, burning, cutting, stabbing. I know sometimes you say our tribal marks. They are a form of identification, but then it can be done in an excess and it can become an abuse. The emotional abuse also have ignoring, yelling, swearing, mocking, threats, intimidation. There's a family that has all of these features. You can enter into a child's family, and then you end up that once they leave school and they get to their houses, nobody talks to them. The parent doesn't care what did you learn in school today. No, nothing. But then when the parents need something, they'll yell, "Hey, people come!" Yelling. So the child ends up experiencing all of these. And then if your parents ask you to do something you don't do it becomes a threat. If you don't do it, I will beat you. So that becomes a threat. Okay, and then we have the mocking and the intimidation. Intimidation, sometimes even a teacher can intimidate a student. Sometimes a student can intimidate another student. Sometimes a parent can intimidate their own child. Okay, and the parent provide for the child. If you don't do this, then you won't get this or you won't do that. Becomes an intimidation. Yes. And then we have the verbal abuse, the arguments and the intense arguments. People arguing over their voices, screaming, insulting, criticism. That's why we always say we have, criticisms that are good, structured criticism. Constructive, like when a child does something wrong, you need to correct them. There's a way you do it. You call the child, you talk to them, let them know the consequences of what they did, how they can do better. That becomes a structured or constructed criticism. But then if you just why are you doing it this way? You're doing that, you're doing, it becomes criticism in the form that embarrasses the child or the person. And it can, and then it can end up, causing the child to have a mental problem. So we have some of the early warning signs of mental problem, like we said. The presence of these signs don't automatically mean that the person has a mental problem, but it means that there's a cause for investigation. You need to see someone, talk to someone, and then for them to know that you're okay. So you can have a person eating or sleeping too much. Some people will sleep the whole day because once they come out, everything they see is just adding to their problems. They end up being in bed the whole day or staying indoors throughout. And then we have people pulling away from people and unusual activities, like we were saying. Some people can isolate themselves, things, and then you can have people who become distant from things they used to do before. So you can have a child in school who was really active, would answer questions in class, would talk, would play. But then all of a sudden, you start noticing that when you ask a question, the child doesn't answer. That child is no more engaged in the activities happening in the class, then it could be a sign, yes. And they're having low or no energy. Some people they are just dead. And some people, if you meet them under a tree, you will go 4 days and come back and still meet them under the same tree. They don't have the energy they are depressed. So these are signs of early warning signs of a mental problem. And then we can having unexplained aches or pain. Some people, because of their mental, when like I said, our brain controls our physical function. So if you are thinking too much and your brain ends up wiring in a different way than what it's supposed to do, it can end up sending wrong signals to other parts of your body. Yeah, so you can end up feeling pain where there is no pain or such like that. Yes. And then you can feel helpless or hopeless. Some people, it's because of their mental, they've been told the same thing over and over again. So whatever you tell them, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I can't do this. I can't do that. Feeling hopeless and helpless. And then smoking, drinking, or using drugs more than usual, or using them at all. Yes. So there's some people, fine, maybe they drink alcohol. But then you realize maybe the person is your friend, now you drink alcohol too much. Then it means there's something going on that is, they are drinking alcohol, when they get home, they can just sleep it off or stuff like that. So it could also be a sign. And then feeling unusually confused, forgetful, on edge, angry, worried, or scared. You can have them in the cases of those with schizophrenia and bipolar. They are always confused, they forget things, and it can even happen to, elderly people when they have Alzheimer's and things. Yes, and then can also have BLM fighting with something like I said, sometimes a person being abused will also end up abusing other people. So these are some of the signs. See a student that is always abusing other students, always fighting, always enemy. It could be a possibility that the child is being abused him or herself. That is why, yes. And then experiencing severe mood swings, and that can cause problems in schools, job, workplaces, and relationships, yes. And then having persistent thoughts or memories that you can't get out of your mind. That is also a sign. Or hearing voices or believing things that are not true. So in our case of schizophrenia, those working in the street, they are talking to people that are not there. They are hearing things that are, no one else is hearing. And then thinking of harming yourself or others. Thinking of harming yourself or others. It's a very great sign that there is something wrong, with your mental health. And then inability to perform daily tasks. Like taking prevention, getting to work. People with extreme or severe depression ends up not being able to do anything. You enter a person's house and the whole place is dirty. The children are just walking around, like everything is, but that is severe depression. That person can't do anything. They are so depressed. So these are some of the early warning signs. So, like I said, mental health problems can be treated, with proper care and management. Okay, it can be treated, but then there's a saying in health or medical field, the earlier is the better. Okay, so if you seek treatment early, if you seek management early, it can help you. But then in other cases, obviously it's not always 100%. A person cannot, I can't say that every person with a mental health illness is going to be cured. But then the earlier the better, and most of them do get cured. So we have a variety of options. And people with mental illness doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be taking pills, you have to be hospitalized or stuff like that. Yes. But at some point, you will need maybe one of these options. So we have psychotherapy. For the psychotherapy, you would need to meet a specialist, a psychologist, or a therapist who will speak to you through your problems, what you're experiencing, what causes you to do what you do, and all that. So the psychotherapy also helps. Sometimes, being able to speak to someone who will be able to, navigate you through what you need to do and what you don't need to do, can also help alleviate those mental problems. Yes. We have medication. In some people's cases, they would have to take medications. The brain chemicals in the brain that helps you think, behave, and all that. You can use medication to alter them and get better. You can also be hospitalized. In cases where people are, feeling depressed, because they need to be monitored. People on suicide watch and all this stuff, they can be hospitalized or restricted so that they can be monitored. Yes. And then we have support groups. Support groups, we have people, it's a group of people that have experienced the same condition as the person. So if you have someone that has a compulsive obsessive disorder, and that person can find a group that has people who have experienced that and have gotten better or are getting better. So you can get a group like that that can help you get through what you're doing. And then we have self-help or peer support. Some people are able to notice their problems themselves. So they will notice that, okay, these days I've been thinking so much. Maybe I need to do this. So they end up focusing their attention, engaging more in things that will help them boost their moods and stuff like that will help them. And peer support is the same. So your friends can help you, talk to them, they can help you get through. That's why as we are being educated, it will help us in the community, helping other people and educating other people as well. So here it's just going through what I just said, the support group and all that. Okay. So we're going to our next step is the child sexual abuse. We are going to go through that, but before then, if anybody has a question, I'll take that.
Please, madam, I was just thinking about this. I don't know how to put it or classify it. Fear. Can it be a disorder, mental disorder?
Yes. Yeah. Fear can be a sign of a mental health disorder. Like like I said, our brains control our actions, our behavior, our emotions. Okay, so feeling afraid, feeling scared, and it means that there's something not working well in your brain that needs to be checked. Extreme fear. We all have a cause to fear when something is actually fearful. But then there are some people that are too afraid of something that it's beyond, our comprehension. So someone hearing a dog, a common dog that is a household pet. People, you see dog all around, but then there's some people, no matter what, dog and me, no, they'll go far away. These are a sign, okay? It's a sign that there's something wrong. And then they will have to be, going through either psychotherapy to help them overcome the fear. The fears can be overcome, okay, but it just needs a lot more work, more communication, more talking, more convincing, for the person to get it.
The reason why I have a friend who loves to invest, but sometimes he will do analysis before he will do the investment. He will come out by saying that they feel maybe the outcome will not favor or something of that nature. So I was wondering whether psychological
Yeah, so in
issue.
that instance, it's not necessarily it's just human behavior. Something you've not done before, something that hasn't gone well for you before. Okay, so either you already failed in that aspect, or you want to, or you know people that have failed. So it's just uncertainty. Such a person needs either more education or more convincing, or maybe they doubt themselves. Either because they've been told if you do it, it's not going to work, and he or she has believed it. Okay, so it can still fall under some form of abuse. Okay, maybe when he or she was growing up, she was told, you can't do anything. What will you do in this family? You've never done anything. Like, what do you think you are going to do? So by the time the person wants to invest, he or she is always thinking, nobody has done this. So they end up withdrawing and like this. I'm just too afraid to do that. And then they'll end up with it. It's a form of abuse. He or she has been told constantly, can't do that, can't do it. Nobody has done it. You should see. And the more it goes on, the more it gets stuck in the brain. And then sometimes, even unconsciously, the person just doesn't, it's just afraid of doing that thing because I know he or she can do it. So it could also be a sign of a mental health problem because of abuse or something like that.
It's also self-esteem. Does it have to link one's mental health? And if it does, how then work on somebody's mind to help relieve the person of self-inferiority complex?
Okay, so your question, I can shed a little more light, but not deeply because I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. But then, yes, there are some people, because of, it all comes to abuse. Okay, some people, when they are children and they're growing up, their parents treat them like queens and kings. Okay, hey, this is my child, hey, you're very dear, you're very dear, you're very dear. So that child ends up growing up thinking he or she is better than everyone else. And it's not only for people who, let me say, have money or are from rich families. No, there are some people, you can believe that they don't have anything, but the way they act is like they are better. They can't even walk, in debt. It's because of, so somehow, I don't know how to characterize that kind of abuse, but it's like they've been put on this kind of pedestal that, so you see, that's why when we need to tackle mental health, we have to tackle it from childhood. As the child is growing up, whatever state, the law is, at least for them to be 18, that is 18 years, how many days in a week, how many days in a month, how many days in a year, that child has constantly been told, you're a princess, you're a princess, you're a princess, you're a princess, you're a princess. Imagine, if I spend the whole day telling you you're a millionaire, by the time you go and trust me, you will think you're a millionaire. Yes, so yes, so sometimes, like I said, you all need to, like, if you are seeing someone with a symptom or a behavior or a character that you think might be a mental, you will have to see the specialist who will tell you that you know what this. And then usually those the therapists and the psychologists, they talk to you, they try to find out how you were raised, how you were brought up, and they will try to identify such, the instances that cause, what you are experiencing or how the person is. So that could also be someone feeling too big, too mighty, too, high about it. It could be that, they were growing up, they've been told the same thing, or they've associated with the kind of group or a person that has been making him or her think that way. Okay, please say any more questions.
I think that the therapists, that they are specialists in that, they can solve that problem. So when you see them, they will realize that you know what to do. Whatever you are keeping in your head, your process, through their knowledge, you can help and keep that thing from you. The word from the specialists in that.
Yeah.
It's not ordinary person.
And then it takes time for you to actually know the cause of the person's behavior. Like the example is the friend that he spoke about, not managing people. Yeah. So if you speak to them, they say that he probably doesn't, want to be bothered, and so he intentionally does that. And so that person to be that, that person feels like, and that's why they say sometimes that people with money don't make noise, and people with something don't make noise about it, like people who don't have it. The rich doesn't walk around with gold chains and bangles, and you see, it's people who are trying to actually prove to people that they have it, that ends up doing that. So if the person is feeling too high above or too mature for everyone else and too knowledgeable, feeling too big, it's because they themselves think they lack that ability. So they don't want to actually be normal for people to know that they lack that ability. So they end up, acting like they have that ability, feeling too big and too on top of everyone else. But then it could not be like that. Okay, so can we move on now? Okay. So we are going to get into child sexual abuse. Like I said, the abuse is a major cause of mental health problems. And then, as a child, if you go through such things, it ends up affecting you, through adulthood, and it ends up affecting you through your life. Yes. So, as you can see here, child sexual abuse, also known as child molestation, and it's a form of child abuse in which an adult or an older adolescent uses a child for sexual stimulation. And then the forms of the child sexual abuse include engaging in sexual activities with a child, whether by asking. That's why I said, defilement. It doesn't matter if you have consent or not. It's still child sexual abuse. So whether by asking or pressuring or by other means. And some people also, in some situations, the courts have won cases against people who actually have consent. Because if the consent is done by pressuring or by coercion or by, threatening, it still doesn't count as consent. Consent has to be from the person's own legal mind and, yes. So by pressuring or asking or any other means, indecent exposure, either of the genitals or females, even if the genitals, the nipples are out, it's a sexual abuse. And then child grooming. There are some people that take children to actually groom them to become either their wives or their girlfriends or their sexual partners. That is child grooming. And then we have child sexual exploitation. Some people also exploit the children by making other people involved in the child sexual activities. And then child pornography as well. So child sexual abuse, where does it usually happen? Sometimes we think that, when we hear someone has been raped or assaulted, I don't know, some people think it happened on the streets. Like you're walking in the dark and then someone cuts you and just, okay, that can happen, but that is not always the case, okay? So it can occur in a variety of settings, including homes, schools, workplaces, yes. And then child marriage is also a form of child abuse, the main form of child abuse, because it happens a lot, yes. And then also most sexual, this is a research, most sexual abuse offenders are either acquainted or they are known by their victims. So about a fraction of the number of people who are actually assaulted don't know their victims. Sorry, don't know their victims yet, and their victims don't know their perpetrators. So, I mean, talking about someone walking on the street and being raped, even with that, sometimes you end up finding out that you know the person knows them. But then, when we are talking about people who don't know each other that ends up being sexually assaulted, sometimes people travel to a different whole community or a whole new city and then they are assaulted by someone who don't know, then that becomes it. But most of the time, the people who commit those child sexual abuse are known by their victims. So approximately about 30% are relatives of the person or the child. And then most often brothers or cousins, friends of the family. Yes. So they are known by the victim, they are family, they are always together. We can also, and around 60% are acquaintances such as friends of the family. So we have within the family, your brothers, your cousins, sometimes an extended family, they're staying in the same house, then it becomes a family. But then acquaintances, like, your friends, the family friends, my father's friends, my mother's friends, my brother's friends, so acquaintances, people that they know. And then we have 10% strangers, like I said, strangers is about 10%. So that means people who are who don't know their victims are just a fraction of it. But then 60% are acquaintances. Usually the family, in Ghana, our family value is high. It's not too common to see a brother and a sister engaging in war. But then the acquaintances takes the set up with the same page. And so, acquaintances we need to be careful about that. Okay, and like I said earlier, the American Psychology or Psychological Association have stated that children are not concerned to sexual activity with adults. That's why in defilement it says with or without consent. So whether you ask the child says, I'm coming to your house, even if the child walks there, it's still no consent. Yes.
You have answered my question here.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to ask you about child marriage.
Oh, okay.
In that, some instances, the children doesn't have any problem with that.
Yes, so it's still a child.
So now
Yes.
that
Yes. So with or without consent, yes. So it says that children cannot consent to sexual activity with adults and condemns, such actions. And then an adult who engages in sexual activity with a child is performing a criminal and an immoral act, which can never be considered normal. So we shouldn't consider it normal, to see a 65-year-old man marrying a 30-year-old girl. There's nothing normal about that. They are not done growing, they are still developing, their brains, okay, they are still maturing. So I come to talk about the risk factors. Risk factors. So I stated here that, and I've said it earlier, it is no victim's fault if they are sexually abused or assaulted. Because you can't tell me that because, okay.
I have a question on the consent.
Okay.
At what age do you classify someone as a child? Because I read something online.
Yeah, below 18. So below 18, it's for even 19. So the teen ages, and then different countries and different age gaps. When you go to America, you can drive at 16. If you go to some places, you can drink at 16. If you go to Arab, I think even at 21, you can't drink. And in America, at 16, you can drink at 18 years. So different countries and their age limits. But in Ghana, anybody in the teen ages. Okay, so below 18, yeah, our age is 18 and above. It's an adult. So below 18, consent. With or without consent. Yes.
In Ghana here, our laws also permit to marry an age of 18.
Yeah, that's saying 18 and above.
Say
Young
16
adult.
rather.
16.
Marry. You don't marry.
No.
No, I think I don't know. Yes, I agree to what you say. It's not marriage. I think it's rather consent to sex. Yes, yeah, one of them is at 16.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and the marriage is at 18.
Yeah,
So I
the
wanted
marriage
to
is at
add up
18 and
that.
above, yes. So, though these days our laws are being, modified and all that, so I'll read more on that, but it's still 18. For marriage, especially for consent, it's about 18. But below 18, yes, it's defilement and child sexual abuse. We should do that, yes. So when we talk about the risk factors, so like I said, the risk factors, there are things that we need to watch out for. That doesn't mean that it's the fault of the victim if anything happens to them, okay? So, like I said here, however, the risk factors for sexual assault are conditions or circumstances or characteristics associated with an individual or his environment that increases the risk or the likelihood of the individual becoming a perpetrator or a victim. Okay, like I sometimes an abused child becomes an abuser. Yes. So we have individual factors, we have societal factors. Okay. The individual factors, we have stressful home environment. Okay. When a child is living in a stressful home environment, the child being, in a place where they work too much, like we say, low self-confidence in their surroundings, and particularly at home. They are vulnerable to an adult who promises stability and security. So there are some children, their parents wake up early at dawn and then they leave to either the marketplaces or places that they need to go to, and that child is left alone. So if a child like this meets an adult and says, "Oh, we are at home, come to my house and watch TV," child end up coming. Okay, because there's a stressful home environment. Stress doesn't mean that the child is working 24/7, but then there's something that the child cannot fathom or comprehend very well. It can end up, making the child be sexually abused. This means that without consent, okay. So you going every day, going because of the circumstances at home, it could end up, causing you to be sexually abused. And then we have the low self-esteem. Some children, they have low self-esteem, like I said, for constantly being abused at home verbally. You're not pretty. So once a man or a boy or a guy who wants just sexual stimulation tells you, "Oh, you're pretty," then that's it. They become attached to that person because that person said they are pretty. Because where he or she is coming from, they told her, "You're not pretty, you're not beautiful, you have a flat bum." So once you get that child gets someone that tells them otherwise, then they end up following that person, which can also still lead them to be sexually assaulted or abused. Yes. And then we have unmonitored access to technology. So these days, lots of children have phones, they have Facebook. And on Facebook, it is geographical location. So people in Nigeria can find people in Nigeria. So you meet an adult going through Facebook, and children, because they're not being monitored with this technology, they end up using their phones. Sometimes they will even I'll get to a point where a child may not even know that what they are doing, what they are doing, or what is being done to them is an abuse. Okay, so a child may not know that me taking a picture with a sleeveless top, smiling could be a provocative, tool for an adult out there. So they end up posting pictures, an adult sees, and then starts messaging them. "How are you doing? Where do you live?" And they start meeting up. So because of this unmonitored access to technology, that child ends up going to meet a total stranger, and then they can end up being assaulted, through that process. So, and then we have poor communication. The children who do not feel that they can open with their parents may become distant, isolated, and insecure, and therefore more susceptible to perpetrators' bullying. So what this is saying is that, there are some children, like I said, at home, they are not able to communicate with their parents or their guardians. So when they have a problem, they don't have anyone to they don't have their parents to run to. So the first person or the adult that listens to them, they become close to that person. And then as humans, as time goes on, one day, it could be a risk factor for that child. And we have loneliness. If someone is lonely, doesn't have friends, always kept to themselves. If they get one person that can listen to them, that will play with them, that will go out with them, they become close to that person. And even with or without family, like I'm saying, it's still child sexual abuse. Sometimes that person can end up assaulting the child. And then we have misunderstanding boundaries. So like I said, this actually means that there are some children, like I'm saying, they don't know that what is being done to them is an abuse. They don't know it's an abuse. So sometimes when you have a house where the family shares the same maybe room, the child doesn't know that my cousin or my family's friend seeing me naked is an abuse. You shouldn't be looking at a child naked. That is an abuse or an assault, sexual assault. But they don't know. So they end up being abused even without their knowledge that they are being abused. Okay. So in this instances, maybe if they all share the same room, when the girls go and bath and they are coming to change, the cousins and the brothers need to go out for them to change. But in some instances, they will all be in the same room. And then constantly, men and their anatomy, constantly seeing a woman naked or a girl growing up with breasts and woman growing up naked. One day, they will have an urge that they can't control and they will end up assaulting their, the person, either their family or not. Yes. And then we have disabilities. So the disabilities, it talks about children, especially those with special needs, especially those with special needs. Okay. Sometimes some people they are mute, they can't talk, some of them are deaf, some of them, they have a physically, disability like not being able to walk or talk properly, like autism, Down syndrome, such them, they can end up being abused because of their disability. Okay. Because the person knows that once I assault this person, he or she is not going to say anything. Even if she says anything, nobody will understand, nobody will believe the person. So they end up assaulting people because they are disabled. That's the disability. And then we have domestic abuse. It all boils down to the stressful home environment. The child is being abused in the house. Once they come out and they find a person that they can talk to, a person that doesn't abuse, a person that talks to them nicely, treats them well, they end up being in that person's arms. And then we have a person that has been sexually abused before. Sometimes some people, they hear about this thing like, oh, this girl, we heard that she was raped some time ago, and so that person is marked as an easy target. And so just because you've been assaulted before, other people also see you as an easy target, and then you might end up being abused again because of the prior sexual abuse. And then we have the community factors. So community factors, sometimes, it's none of these things that we mentioned. The person doesn't have disability, doesn't have low self-esteem, none of what we've spoken about. But then community factors, sometimes inadequate victim care. So imagine someone reporting to maybe, the assembly member or someone that I've been abused by this person. And then they tell you, what were you doing that you were abused? What were you wearing? They end up, not taking you serious, actually blaming you for the abuse. And then it ends up causing the people who actually committed the crime or the perpetrators to have more energy. Like, if you go and say they won't believe you, if you don't want to behave, they don't wear this, they don't wear. That means you are not taking care of the victims' report seriously, and it ends up giving the perpetrators more ways to function. And so they know that even if I raise this girl and she goes to tell them, they won't leave my head. So you are not caring for the victims, adequately. And then we have schools, homes, and workplaces not addressing sexual abuse. Imagine a co-worker, maybe a fellow teacher, a female teacher or a male teacher, they come to you and say that this teacher did this and that, and then the headmaster goes, what were you doing that year? They don't take you seriously with these things. And so when it happens like that, the next time the person who committed the act doesn't care doing it to another person, because even if you go, they'll treat you like this. But if they are being, taken seriously, they actually do investigations, find out. Even sometimes the stressful process alone will not cause the perpetrator to perform that act again. Because you want to be announced to the whole community that you tried, even if it comes out and they stop the thing, people will now see you as the person who tried to rape this person or who tried to do it. Then it will deter them from committing the act. But then sometimes they are not taken seriously, and since they are not being taken seriously, they'll end up committing the act again.
I just said that, and you said the victim. You know that we men also for a victim
Yeah,
on your act. I'm telling you, listen. There was one teacher in my school, female. They used to wear some short dress, and wear tight trousers to the school. So the headmaster and the staff has called her to advise her, but he was not listening. Not knowing, he also teaches at the KG, KG2. Not knowing the children are also seeing it. So one day, some of the children are playing and the madam was playing and then one of the kids, the madam.
Hey!
One of them ran to the madam that this is what then the madam turned up and that boy.
Oh,
Then you went to call the community to the school. You see, from the act of the madam, he's also abusing the children.
Yes.
Even with the teachers, we also feel abused, but we will not listen. So when we say victim, your action has also called me to be a victim
Yeah,
of
that's
what
why
you
I
want
said we
to
have
do.
indecent exposure. Okay.
So
You know,
when you say you are victim, you are referring to the woman who has something happened to you, but you forget
no,
to
it's
mention
true.
of
Yes,
what I
no,
was also feeling of your action.
no, for the feelings, you can't help, you see, that's what I'm saying, that it all comes to area. It's not appropriate for a teacher to wear tight clothes. That's why every job and their yes,
Like I use the school setting
as
as
an
an
example,
example.
yes. So that's what I'm
But
saying.
it's not
So, you
applicable only in the school.
see, yes.
Outside the school, everywhere. That is what is
No, wait,
happening.
hold on. You say everywhere. You can't, that's what I'm saying. It's not everywhere. If I'm in my home, I'm wearing my short knicker, my top, I'm cooking or something, I run out to go and buy vegetables and you see me on the road. You can't tell me that it's an inappropriate attire. Okay. It's personal. It's the person's appearance. But then in certain settings, like what you just said, in a school. So that's why teachers used to have uniforms. They all wear straight brown dress with round necks and we all go. That one, if you have the most nicest outfit, nobody will see it. You wear that uniform. Nurses have the uniforms, they wear green, white, sometimes khaki with green, we go. Doctors, when we go to the hospital, it doesn't matter if I'm wearing shorts or if I'm wearing covered, you have a lab coat, white, you wear it, you button up, you go, okay? So every job place and their description, every setting, okay? Waiters and waiters, some of them, they wear long sleeves with trousers and an apron. That is their outfit, okay? And it depends. Sometimes you enter a place, that's what I'm saying, in our parts of the world, that's what they're used to. Sometimes when you go to other parts of the world, they have restaurants that serve food in bikinis. That is swimwear, just a bra and a pant. So it's your preference that will lead you to go there. But you can't go there and assault someone and tell them that because of the way they are dressed, because that is how they do things there. Okay, so it's every setting and how they should dress. Okay, so the instance that you gave, that teacher wearing outfits, and especially for the children, okay, it's so especially abusing the children. So that is not right. Yes. But then if that teacher is raped, you can't say that it's because of the way she was dressed. It's still the perpetrator's fault. Okay, you need to how do you call it? Control your edges and your feelings, yes, so that you don't force yourself on anyone. You still need consent before you have sex with any adults. Okay, any adults, yes. But for the children, in that case, yeah, that's why we are all responsible for our settings. Okay, the school is responsible for that teacher. If that teacher is dressing that can influence the children in a certain way, it does serve the teacher, or if the teacher doesn't listen to advice, yeah, the head, I don't know the functions, exact functions of the head, if they can sack someone or report someone. But then if that person really likes their job and depends on it, they will change and then for the better way. But then every setting and their dressing that they need to take their yes. But still the responsibility is not on the victim, it's on the perpetrator to control
I want to
the
do that. The victim here become two. I want to be a victim.
no. You can't be a victim. That's what I'm saying. You see, once the person is clothed, it's different, okay. But then, that's why I say it's in every part of the world. I don't know if in Ghana if they've said that in someone wears a short dress, if there's a measurement to how long a person's stay should be. But when you go to other parts of the world that I know, in America and other places, going completely naked, you can even use sellotape on the nipple, it's fine. It's fine. But then once they are exposed, it becomes indecent exposure. You can be arrested and sent to jail. But in Ghana, that law has not been passed. I don't think someone walking around completely naked will be arrested. Okay, so you can't say that because a person is dressed in a certain way, they are being nice. But then if that person is naked in your, in your environment, you can go and report that that person is sexually assaulting or indecent exposure, and then you can, fight that battle in court. Yes, but then raping someone doesn't say because you are being victimized.
The raping is another act. That is not what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
So
if someone is, exposing their body and then it's, bothering you or you feel victimized, you need to report it. You can report it to the police. They will, they are law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a doctor. So if they are more into it, yes, you can fight that battle. Recently a musician in America sued a journalist for reporting a case that was not true, and she has won. So you never know what you can win if you don't report it and meet a proper lawyer to help you through it. Who knows? You won't be the first man in Nigeria to win a case against a lady wearing a short skirt. Yes. So that is it. Okay. So like the community factors that I saying, then I was on minor punishments for perpetrators of sexual abuse. Sometimes somebody commits a sexual abuse and they end up, bringing the case home. That's what they say, bring it home. Well, let's settle it home. And since they all know that even if it happens, they will settle it home. They will keep doing it. Because settling home is just a minor punishment. But I don't know what happens when they settle it home. I have no idea. Someone can tell me. Did they bring a boat or did they find their money or what? I don't know.
It depends on
the area and the family. So here, what did they do?
No, it depends. When they sit on the case and they see the act.
The act, okay.
Some are intentionally.
The child is,
and then
Because of the closeness, the relation, they try to cover it as soon as
So that's what happens. So if that becomes a minor, case. But then if there's a major punishment, like it doesn't matter if brother or sister, you're going to jail for 10 years, they won't do it. Even if they have the edge, no matter what. Tell me right now that if I told you that if a lady is wearing short and you look, your head will be cut off, you will never look, even if you will never look. Because you know that if you look, they will cut off your head. Okay. So once the punishment becomes severe, the act will also decrease. Yes. And then we have poor safety in public spaces. Example is like street lights. So when you have dark places that are very quiet, children who have to trek long distances to school, then it ends up getting dark for them with the way they can be, sexually assaulted because of that. And then violating victim confidentiality. Sometimes these things happen. They report it, and the police will end up going to, discuss it with the family. The wife will also now go and tell the friend. Then the friend will go to the salon and say, "Oh, this person, they said this is not good." So by the time the person is like, the whole community knows that he or she has been assaulted. And then that person ends up being mocked. And if it happens, next time a person is assaulted, they won't report it. Because if they report it right now, everybody will hear that that's what has happened. And so that the perpetrator gets more weight. It becomes, if you report it, then everybody will hear, they will laugh at you. So that's what they used to keep the victims quiet. Go and say it, they will laugh at you. Go and say it, they will do this. Go and say it, they will do this. So it ends up making the act continuous with no, proper punishment for them. And then blaming of victims for being sexually assaulted. Okay, like I said earlier, you can't blame someone for wearing short clothes or for, wearing tight clothes or for their bonbon shaking. Okay, but then in some parts, they will end up blaming you. Why were you shaking? You too, when you walk, you like shaking too much. But you can't blame them. Honestly, that is the so you see, the example is if I leave my bag here and I go, we all leave. And someone, or let's say one of you comes back and finds the bag and you decide to take it. You can't come and tell them because I left the bag, you took it. It's not yours. The bag doesn't belong to you, so you cannot take it. Okay, so it's the same way. the person is wearing a tight and short clothes or the bubble is shaking, that person has not given you consent, so you cannot force yourself on the person, okay, unless the person is. But if I come and I say,
No,
okay,
you can't force yourself on the person.
mhm.
But some that is intentional.
Yes, we were really talking about
Like you have cats in your house, and you left your meat or your fish there and leave. What do you think you have to do?
No,
And the other is
it's
deliberative.
an example we are all making, but then this becomes something that is, of the mind. You decided to, rape the person. This is in the case of rape. We are talking about rape and defilement, child sexual abuse, the child in the first place. And then when we come to rape, it becomes an adult who you think is, victimizing you by shaking their bum and dressing decently. Okay, but then it still comes down to consent. Consent. If the cat, so in the same way that you leaving the fish there and the cat is in it. If you know you can't keep your fish in the fridge, take the cat away. So if you know you can't control yourself looking at someone wearing short clothes, don't look. Once you see that person, look the other way.
Sometimes to deal with these issues, we have to act small.
Yes, oh yes, we are educating them.
Yes.
But then that's why see, this is not only about telling you, oh, no, we have to educate the children on how to carry themselves about. And at first, aside everything else, dressing indecently has even disadvantage to everybody.
So the disadvantage comes to you.
Yes, to the person, the person even not wearing proper clothes, dressing indecently. It's a disadvantage for you. Yes. So we still teach them to dress properly, dress well. But then, yeah, but then how do I say it? Yes, I was reading an article earlier on about a lady who was addressing the same issue. But then you see, some animals have fur to cover them and all that, and then we humans we have clothes that is wear. So when you come to examples, I don't know. Okay, let's say right now it's Hamatan, right? But let's assume it's it's hot or it's there's heat everywhere. We can't wear, though normally here in Ghana, that's why I say in Ghana we are the ones who are using clothing more than everyone in the world. It will be hot, but you still wear your suit and then sit in the taxi in this hot sun and go to work, which is so hot, and then you still come home fine. But then when you go to other things, when it's cold, they wear the suit, they wear the jacket. When it's if the weather is hot, they reduce their clothing. Okay. So in other instances, the same way the ladies might think, oh, it's hot now. Let me just wear something. And then some people have heat intolerance. You have other medical conditions like hyperthyroidism that causes people to be intolerant to heat. So there are some people, if they wear a shirt like what I'm wearing right now, they will be itching. They will feel uneasy. So those people, they like wearing, those strapless or thin strap tops, and then something that won't give them too much heat. That is on the part of those who have the medical. So you never know who has a condition that doesn't make them tolerate it very well. And so they might need to reduce their clothing in order to feel comfortable. Okay. You never know. So I can't come and say that these two people working, this one has intolerance, that's why she's dressed that way, or this one doesn't. There's no way to know. But then there's still a way that we need to educate the children that dressing in a modest way is good for them. Not that it's bad for them to be raped. If you do that, it means that we are telling them that if they dress indecently in their robe, it's their fault, which is not what we are promoting here. Okay, that is not what we are promoting here. Because no matter what, if the person is dressed, as long as the person is covered, you can't come and tell that because the person bumble with shape clothes, the person can be assaulted because of that. Okay, but then it's also a risk factor. It's just what increases the edge in someone. There could be 10 men here. But it could be only one of them that will feel an edge because some of them too. So it's all about our mindsets. Okay, yes. And some people, no matter what, when they see someone, they know this is a young person, they don't even look, it's just our mindset. So you can't tell me that sometimes if you know that this food you don't like it, when you see it, you don't like it, you just forget about it. Okay. And then there are some foods that you like, when you see the food, you like this food, this food, this food. So it's the way we've, trained our minds, okay, so that we don't commit such acts. That's what will help us, not, saying that we have a question. Okay.
You touch on the individual factors and the community. And I don't know the next slide where we are heading to, but I want to find out the case of a mother battling with a child.
Okay, you want to know
Yeah.
sexual?
Yes.
Okay.
The implication of it.
Okay,
Because
so a mother battling with a girl, a little girl.
or boy.
The boy, you see, we all have the children, they have their developmental ages, okay. A 2-year-old boy has already started learning about the environment. What is covered up, what is not, what is yes. So with that, it's not appropriate. But then, as to the law, we saw in the case of okay, and we are all learning. We saw in her case how it ended. She was jailed because she was exposed. She was naked, and the child was naked as well, together in a picture. That was it. So that tells me that in Ghana now, if you are battling with a child, if a man is battling with a baby girl, if a woman is battling with a baby boy, it's not right. It is still child sexual assault. And they can be charged. Oh, yes. So right now, if you go out right now, we'll get plenty. We'll get plenty. But
I
it's
think
I had a chance.
it wasn't exposing yourself to the fact was in public.
Oh no, it's still not right. But then hers was severe because it was in public. Yes. No, but it's still not bad. Yeah.
But also was exposing himself to the child. So that's what.
Yes, that was, and then it was not in public. So it's like two different years. She exposed herself and then it was in public as well. So two different charges and offenses altogether, yes. But it's still not right because if a woman is battling with a child, a young boy, they are telling the boy that it's okay to see women naked. And then one day, what if the child just feels like seeing someone naked, then they'll end up attacking someone, tearing off their clothes, and then looking at them again. Because there are some people who assault people that they don't rape them. Yes, you have people who assault people that they don't rape them. Some of them, they'll just struggle with you, tear your clothes, and then naked, you just start walking. And then that's all that they need. That's all. That's a mental health problem. Yes. So that is not right. That question that you asked, yes, that is not right. It shouldn't be that a woman battling with a young boy or a man battling the younger child. It's not. At least by 2 years, it should stop. Yes.
That's it. But you come back, you have to back
I know sometimes, in our setting, that's why we need to know certain things and know how to handle it. Sometimes, like you want to bath the child and send the child out so that they can also bath. Yes, so that one, don't be naked, just bring the child back, and then you can be naked then, yes, and then back, yes. Because we all need to, some things that work for us. We have things that work for us, yes. Some people, they have time, they can sit down there and come and dress you and everything will go. They don't have time. So once they back you, then your mother is after your father is outside to dress you and then you will go. It's still the same with dressing. The man shouldn't be dressing your 5-year-old daughter or stuff like that. It's also not right. So we've done it so much that it has become normal, but it is not right. And we still need to educate the children on it for them to know that it is not right. So they themselves can say, oh, Daddy, don't worry, I'll wear my own clothes, I'll do this, I'll do that. Or Mommy, don't do this, I'll do that. And then everything will be fine. Yes. Okay, so we as teachers, as we've already spoken about what causes it, I think we automatically know what we need to do in order to, prevent them. But another thing that was meant for the children is to learn self-defense. Okay, in case someone is attacking them, then they will know how to go about it. So these are just a couple of pictures to show the children, male or female, how to attack someone if they are being attacked to be sexually assaulted or even really attacking. So we have the first one, to know the points where you can weaken someone or the points or things on the body that can make someone weak so that you can get away from your attacker. So you can attack someone in the eye, okay? So it depends. If the person grabs you and you are facing the person, if you are not able to use your hands, you can even use your head and then target the nose, okay? You have the nose, then you have the eye. But then if the person is grabbing you, if the person is grabbing you and your hands are free, then you can poke the eyes. And then if your hands are still free, you can also, punch the throat. It will still weaken the person. These places, when you hit, if the person doesn't feel anything, then it means that person is special. And then we have, right in the center of, the person's like on top of the stomach, yes. The solar plexus, yes. And then we have the knee. The knee bends one way, this way. You can't extend it forward. So once you are able to hit or push someone on the knee, it will weaken them and they can let you go in case of an attack. This is for all people, even an adult. Sometimes somebody is trying to steal from you or something, somebody is attacking you. You never know these days. People are being attacked for no reason. Sometimes they are selling their body parts. So in case of any attack, you can target these points, and if you have any means of hurting them, they do that. And then we have the groin. The groin. I know the men don't like the groin. If you are playing football and someone hits you there, so you can attack them there. So these pictures are just showing you how you can. So in case the person grabs you and your back, you can do this, hurting their jaw or their throat. You can, it depends on your size and the size of the attacker as well. Yes. And the second picture is showing, the elbow hitting the stomach, the solar plexus that we talked about. It. And then these are also just showing. And then you see the first picture, you see the lady, hitting the jaw, or the throat or the nose. So in that direction, you can hit anywhere. So we used to teach the children these self-defense, so that in case they are being attacked, because sometimes your attacker, but because your attacker, that's what makes them not prepared, to be able to free themselves. But in these cases, so they can still defend themselves by getting away from them. So these are just illustrations of what they will need to do to get away from an attack. But then when I meet the children, I will tell them about, the point that were the risk factors and then how to prevent them. We'll just go through them all over again. That will be it. So that is the end of our presentation today. So I'll take last questions if there are any, and then we'll just point. Is there any questions? Okay. So thank you for your attention, and you all be present for the students, right? With the students.
Maybe activities without a
Okay. So in case I don't see you again, something like that. Okay. So in case I reach you again, then that's fine. If not, then have a nice day, and thank you for your attention.
In that case, they have to send it to
Yes. You should follow up, and you should take my number, and then in case you need that, it will be a game changer for a lot of years. So you can find. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Madam, this one is personal anyway. I'm working on abortion issues. So maybe after here, I will talk to you.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Okay.
So on behalf of my everyman, we say thank you very much for this conversation that we have had. It's very good for all of us. And we make sure that being transferred to the children are differently and change the society. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
the name of the
Evelyn.
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 Ah, Those are right. No one has spoken. No. Hello, tell me. Hello, Leticia, Kade.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear from you. We are done, so for the teachers, and we just want to know, just in case.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, with the teachers, and at least the knowledge has been shared. Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
So right now the next step is the
then-
children, right? The kids, right?
Yes, please. That will be at 2 p.m.
Okay. 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 That is good. It was good information.
Thank you so much. We will take a rest and wait for 2 p.m.
So what time is it there now?
It's now 11:17.
Oh, okay. So the children is at what time? 2?
2 p.m. here.
Oh, okay. 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 So it look at here. So we'll end this one and continue at 2.
Okay. Okay.
You will end this Zoom, right?
Thank you, sir. Yes, please. We have to end it.
Okay. All right.
Ideas.
Before you come, I may not be here. Well, it's around 2 days. I told you, I have to flash